Here we go.
Another day.
Another day at court. My
Yeah.
goodness. Is Diddy's defense getting to Cassie? How is her demeanor in court today?
To watch someone who is visibly pregnant sort of take deep breaths at times, she's keeping her cool. Honestly, she didn't cry or anything like that. Obviously, early on in the testimony, there were some things that had her in tears. But today, she's been very calm, very measured, especially considering the audio clip that we heard of her threatening to kill someone. I looked over at the jury box because I was wanting to hear their reaction as we're hearing in real time her voice threatening several times to kill someone because she's concerned about this freak-off video, and the jurors were shocked. I saw the eyebrows raised, I saw them listening, and I think to hear her voice in court and see how calm and measured she is, and then to hear that side of her. Again, it was in 2014 that this audio clip was something that she recorded, but clearly she's threatening someone who she thinks might release a freak-off video, and she's worried about it.
And the person that she was threatening was one of Diddy's associates.
Correct.
Okay. So you saw the jurors' reactions to that audio tape. What was Diddy's reaction? What was Cassie's own reaction when she heard her audio?
She just kind of looked down. I mean, she wasn't, and it was hard for me. I have a great shot of the jury in terms of where I'm sitting. I can see Sean Combs. I have to sort of raise up to look at Cassie Ventura, but she seems to be very calm. I mean, I think she knows that some of this evidence was going to come out. So she's answering the questions, yes, no. When she doesn't remember something, she's very clear about that. But the prosecution, the defense has been trying to poke some holes into the testimony she gave about the alleged rape that she said took place toward the end of their relationship.
How are they trying to poke holes in that alleged rape that took place?
The timeline. They're looking at the timeline. They're asking her questions. Well, was it this time or that time? They're also looking at around that same time she was still talking to or dating, as she says, her now husband, Alex Fine. So they're trying to really, in many ways, I think what they're trying to do is question her credibility.
So Cassie was asked about receiving a FaceTime from her now husband while she was having sex with Diddy. Is that again the case of the defense trying to poke holes in her story?
I think that's where it goes back to how much can we trust this person, because they're entering evidence with phone records and different things to show, well, you were with this person at this time, or you sent that message, but yet you were dating this person. This is about a criminal enterprise, and there are several elements to that don't necessarily speak to if she was in bed with Diddy or if she was FaceTiming her now husband. So I think they're trying to use what they can, again, to discredit her overall as a witness, because this is also about beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. Diddy's personality, his temper has come up, and today his own defense lawyer said, could it have been his bipolar disorder? What was the reaction in the court?
Right. So again, this is a moment where the prosecution's asking Ventura about testimony that she gave. I didn't see a reaction, so to speak, from the jurors necessarily when this issue came up. But again, it speaks to these mood swings that they've been talking about that he has, that Ventura has said 1 minute he could be nice and he could be kind, but with the drugs and with the alcohol, it was a completely different person.
The prosecutors are hoping that Cassie's testimony wraps up today. They're afraid she's going to go into labor over the weekend. What are you hearing inside of the courtroom and rumblings as to, whether or not she will be wrapped up today, and what would happen if she doesn't finish her testimony? What would happen to the case?
To watch someone who is that far along in their pregnancy breathe, kind of take their time, ask for breaks, it's not shocking that they want to get her off this stand so she can focus on having her third child.
Even more text messages are being revealed today, and one text message in particular, Cassie writes, "I'm lost without you." How damaging was that text message?
Honestly, Rachel, there have been several text messages where she shows that she wants to be with Sean Combs for the rest of her life. We know now that she called herself Cece for Cassie Combs. We know now that she wanted to have a child with him. She saw herself as a wife. So to say those things at this point is not that surprising. But even the defense ended their argument with a text message from 2012, which appears to show Combs saying, "I want to do our last freak off." And then she says something to the effect of, "I don't want it to be our last freak off. I want it to be the first for the rest of my life." That's what she said. But what was so interesting is on redirect, the prosecution showed the context of that text where she then says, "I don't want to do freak offs anymore."
That's a head spin right there.
It is, and I think you could feel that energy in the courtroom.
Right.
Because I looked over at one of my colleagues and I like, did I write this down correctly?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, but that's sort of what makes this case so interesting, because you have someone who was in this long-term committed relationship, and they say they had breaks at times, but 11 years is not something to sneeze at. And that was a long time that they were together, but it was complicated, it's complex. But Cassie Ventura maintains throughout that she really didn't want to do these freak-offs, that she just wanted to be with Sean Combs.
We're anticipating that on Monday, Dawn Richard will be taking the stand. What might we expect to hear from her testimony?
Yeah, Dawn Richard was famously in that Making a Band that was created by Combs, and she filed a lawsuit last year, a civil suit, saying that she was physically and emotionally abused.
Wow. More explosive testimony to come.
Absolutely. The book.
Oh, yes.
So-
Please tell me about the book.
Something else that I thought was interesting is sort of this timeline that the defense laid out. And they showed that Combs and Cassie Ventura had been in contact with each other via text in 2020. This is around the time she had just had her first child. He's congratulating her and saying Frankie's beautiful, so using her daughter's name. And it seemed like they were both sort of having this exchange of sending love and sending light, and I hope your family's well. And one of the last texts Cassie Ventura sent was something to the effect of, I hope one day we'll have an opportunity to talk soon. The defense said, and you never got that opportunity, did you? That was in 2020. Then they built up the case and said, oh, by the way, in October of 2023, you moved back home, is that correct? And she said, well, yeah, I moved back with my parents. You guys have a modest home, your family home where you grew up? And she said, she said, yeah, modest home. So they reiterated, so your mother, your father, your husband, and your 2 children moved back to Connecticut to move to LA. She talks about, yeah, we were transitioning, we wanted to come to the East Coast. Then they said, where was your financial income? Where was the money coming from? Your husband was a physical trainer, that's correct. She answers the question, yes, he was a physical trainer. They're getting to this idea that money was tight around this time. She moves back home. She's not necessarily feeding into that narrative on the stand. But then they go to that November 2023, a settlement is filed in which she winds up getting $20 million, which we now know. But today we learned that the book that she wanted to offer the rights to Sean Combs for $30 million, she called it The Dark Times. For anyone who's been following this story, many of us know that in 2022, Sean Combs at the BET Awards literally shouted out Cassie and said, thank you for holding me down during the dark times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Plot twist. That is wild.
But again, it's all about them trying to create this narrative that money was down. She never got the opportunity to have this sit down that she wanted. But to show that things were apparently all good in 2020, almost 2 years after they split up, they're sending each other light and love. And now here we are, 2025. And not only was there a civil settlement, now you've got someone facing criminal charges.
I also found it interesting that when asked if she hates Diddy,
She said, I never hated him.
and still to this day
Still doesn't hate him to this day. Yeah.
All right.
It's a lot to parse out.